So we'll get into it right here with Joey in just a second. But I'm starting to feel a sense of confidence. The more that I put them on, the more that I put them on my TV, the more I think, you know, there and maybe it is just the competition they're playing. Maybe they can come in here and really compete and play a 3-point game and cover the spread and beat Alabama, and I'll end up looking like a fool. So we'll find out what Joey has to say right here. Before we do that, we want to remind you that this program is brought to you by Derek Daniel State Farm Insurance. You can call Derek for all of your insurance needs at 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel is there. You can call and see how much he can save you today on your home, your life, your auto insurance needs. It won't take you very long. Look, a quick 15-minute phone call. I know it's not fun to be on the phone these days, but you can call them, give them a little bit of information, and they can give you a quote for really, really good insurance, local coverage you can count on, somebody that you can call if you get in a fender bender. Hey, Derek, don't know what to do. Somebody just hit me. He'll be able to help you out. So that is a huge, huge advantage. Look, I don't like robots. I don't like call centers. So when I have trouble, like I did at my house in the summer, I said, Derek, something just happened at my house. What do I do? And he said, let me send you this phone number and that phone number, and call this person. They'll be out tomorrow and they'll fix it. And Derek made it so easy for me to get the house back in order. I appreciate that. He can make it easy for you. Call him at 205-758-3391 for all of your insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel in State Farm is there. All right, let's turn our attention to our guest line. We can find our friend Joey Dwyer. Joey joins us this morning. Vanderbilt Commodores on SI. You follow Joey Dwyer at Joey_Dwy, DWI, covering all things Vanderbilt. But right now, that means football all over the Pavia story. And he will be in Tuscaloosa to see if Vanderbilt can upset the Crimson Tide. Good morning, Joey. How we doing?
Morning, guys. There's been an overwhelming amount of radio hits this week with people in your direction, but this was a must-do. So glad to be on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I just want you to set the scene from the Vanderbilt side of things. How are the Commodores feeling? Obviously, extremely confident is my assumption. We all saw Diego Pavia's comments yesterday. If we play our game, it won't be close. What is the mindset for Vanderbilt? You've beaten South Carolina on the road. You've beaten Virginia Tech on the road. You smacked your 3 cupcakes, and now you're coming to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's one of the more important games of Clark Lee's tenure. It might be the most important game of Clark Lee's tenure. I shy away from saying it's the biggest game in Vanderbilt football history because I don't think there's a ton on the line if they lose. Like, guys, I don't think we're going to change our perception of this team a whole lot if they go in there and lose by 7. That doesn't derail their season or anything along those lines. I think that's all right if that happens. But here's the thing. If they win, this thing could blow up. They could be a top 10 team. They'll be a legitimate college football playoff contender. So I feel like it's a game where Vanderbilt's got a lot to gain, doesn't have a whole lot to lose, and I think it kind of knows that. And guys, the confidence is a great point. That's really what I've gleaned from the entire week. And you guys know this team. It's not anything to be surprised by. We asked Langston Patterson, what does it feel like to be able to know you can compete with Alabama, because he was on the team that lost 55-3 in Tuscaloosa a few years ago, and he said, we're not looking to compete, we're looking to dominate. And it's just not something you've heard from this program and in this game over the years. And when they have made declarations, they've looked stupid for it in the past. Now I think they're making those knowing that they can compete at the very least, and they'll be in the game. Guys, that's a big difference.
How much of this confidence is just rubbed off from Diego Pavia, injecting a bit of juice into the program, or how much of it comes from Clark Lee kind of slowly building this monster there in Nashville?
It's a good question, Mason. I think it's a little of both. First of all, Diego Pavia changed the locker room in a lot of ways. We all know that. That's been well documented. I think Clark Lee deserves a lot of credit here too, though. Chip on the shoulder guy, which has been well established, and I think he's tried to recruit a lot of players who are like him, and I think it's worked because, first of all, he's a guy who was a walk-on at Vanderbilt years ago. A lot of people didn't think he could do this. He was at UCLA making pennies on the dollar to coach, kind of scratched it and clawed his way up. When he finally got his first head coaching job, you hear all about it. He's got no head coaching experience and might not be the guy because of that. And then they lose for a few years, people want him out. I remember the 2 and 10 year, the majority of the fan base I think wanted Clark out, and Vanderbilt I think made a good decision to keep Clark. Obviously, in hindsight, looks like a good decision, but all that to say, a lot of people have counted Clark Lee out. And I think most of his roster is made up of guys that people have counted out as well. So I don't think there's any surprise that they're a confident group because Clark Lee has purposely recruited confident players who really have had to generate their own self belief to have it because nobody's really believed in them down the line.
All the attention goes to Diego Pavia, Joey, but I wanted to ask about this offensive line because you brought in a lot of transfers. There's two aspects I want to ask about. One, the age and experience, but two, when I'm looking at all the Vanderbilt kind of writings, I see quick tackle, quick guard, strong tackle. Then I put their tape on, and you've got Isaiah Glass going right tackle, left tackle, all throughout just based on, I'm guessing, the play call, based on the formation. So let's get your thoughts on the experience of the offensive line, how these guys have gelled so far, and really your thoughts on basically an old school concept, because I can remember a long time ago when I played middle school football, it was kind of like that, based on east and west formations. You wind up on the left or the right. Your thoughts on just this kind of, we're not playing you're only at left tackle, we're kind of flipping things based on formational strategies.
Yeah, it's an old school strategy for an old school guy. Chris Klonakis, their offensive line coach, is about as much of a football guy as you can find. You can see him walking around the practice facility hunched over every time you're in there. The guys love him though, and he's done wonders for this offensive line. I don't know, he's the number one recruiter they've ever had, but that's why they brought in Jeff Nady from South Dakota, who has kind of complimented Klonakis in a lot of ways. And Mason, you know this as well as anybody. They threw all their money at the offensive line this summer. That was the main area they invested in. Reminds me of a few years ago, Clark was at Notre Dame with Brian Kelly, and Notre Dame had the 4-8 year, and Brian Kelly kind of had a revelation and said, I need to invest in the line of scrimmage if this thing's going to work. And obviously didn't do it monetarily back then. I think that was 2017 that he did it. But
Didn't?
now, what's up?
Continue.
But it was different then for Notre Dame because they really built it from the inside out. And Vanderbilt had the luxury of already having it on the outside with Pavia and Eli Stowers, and added Trey Richardson, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But for now, the idea of the offseason was they had to get stronger on the line of scrimmage. They had to get deeper. And obviously they did that. Isaiah Glass, like you mentioned, is a real player for them. He's bigger. He's more athletic than what they've had there in the past. Bryce Henderson, same thing. Jordan White named a captain this week. He's the center, probably the best player on the offensive line, and I think will be an NFL player for a couple of years at the very least. I mean, that's a real transfer haul there. And then Cade McConnell has stepped into a role as well, actually beat out a transfer, Sterling Porche, who I think we had all kind of slated to start. But guys, I think that's the big thing for me is they've invested heavily in the offensive line, and to me, it's made Diego Pavia not have to be a superhero. Or I think in a lot of ways, the game manager term can be used as derogatory and kind of indicate that a guy's not all that talented. I think Diego Pavia is able to manage the game a little bit more than he'd been able to in the past, and I think that's a big deal. If you watch the tape last year, he had to be a superhero. He could never manage the game. You watch the Kentucky game, they scored 20 points. Half their points were from Diego running around in the backfield, dodging 3 or 4 guys and finding an open receiver 20 yards down the field, 10 seconds into the play. I mean, that's not sustainable, and Vanderbilt knew that. Now they finally have, I guess, ways to get his guys in space and ways to get the ball out of his hand quicker. I think that's a big deal, and that's been a real key to their offensive success. And you also can't tune out the offensive line there. Diego's had more clean pockets and hasn't been running for his life all that often. So they're just better as a whole around Diego, and I think that's made him better as well.
I want to kind of keep asking about this offense and the way that they match up with Alabama's defense. I think one of the strongest parts of Alabama's defense is the secondary. And I just wonder, I want to get your opinion on how you think that, if Vanderbilt is kind of forced to purely just man up and line up and run the football against Alabama, are they going to be able to have the same kind of success this season that they were able to, produce last year with seemingly a much better offensive line, a really good running back? So, I mean, on paper, you think they should, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear from you guys what you make of the 227 yards against Georgia. That's interesting to me, and I think Vanderbilt has always said it's got to run to win, and Clark Lee sounds like a broken record when he says that. It's one of the many Clark Lee-isms that we get every week, but I think it's true, especially with Tim Beck kind of at the helm here. They want to run, they want to kind of establish their offense through the run game, and that's what they want their identity to be. I think everything kind of builds off of that. So if they can get Cedric Alexander and MK Young going against Alabama, who might be a little bit shorthanded defensively, I think that could really change the game. But also, I don't bet on Vanderbilt pushing around Alabama like it did on the line of scrimmage last year. That was the most unbelievable part of that upset to me. And I don't know that I expect that to happen again. I think Alabama's too talented up front for that to happen. I'm not betting on Vanderbilt running for 200 yards on Saturday. I'll say that. But I also think, so let's say Alabama does have a really strong secondary, which I think it does. I don't know that that affects this all that much because I think Vanderbilt's trying to get a lot of guys in space on the outside. I think a lot of its throws will be short yardage where it tries to get Trey Richardson the ball 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage or behind it, and he goes and makes the guy miss. Vanderbilt's really taking a lot of pride in becoming a team that blocks on the perimeter. Clark Lee, before the first day of fall camp, sat there in the team room and showed the entire team examples of poor wide receiver blocking and then showed good examples of wide receiver blocking. That was basically his opening statement for the season. And I think Vanderbilt's really embraced that. So I think cornerback play is important and I think it matters. But also, I think Vanderbilt's going to try to scheme its way out of that. It's going to be all about yards after the catch. And then it's going to try to pick its spots to go downfield. And if it can hit on those, I think it's largely due to what they did in the short yardage and what Cedric Alexander and MK Young did. But interested to hear what you guys have to say about maybe Alabama being a little bit shorthanded and how that could affect things here.
Yeah, I do think that not having Quay Russaw, a broken foot, is going to be a pretty big problem for Alabama in the run game. You ask about the 227 yards, and yeah, it's a big number. It's an ugly number for Alabama going against Georgia. But we calculated what 6-7 explosives for Georgia, and so really it was on. I think they ran it for like 38, 39 different times, and you had 31 good reps. Now, all it takes is 6-7 bad reps, and Vanderbilt will take advantage of that and rip you off for a 40-yard gain. That's exactly what Georgia did. A couple big runs ends up with a big number. I do think it's a problem not having Quay Russaw, and I think that you're exactly right with your passing game analysis where Alabama's corners, Damani Jackson, you're going to have to be coming up physical on the line of scrimmage. And I do, and I was telling Hunter last night as we were chatting, I said, I think you could see a scenario where Damani Jackson gets sat on the bench and says, "We'll see you next week, Damani." It is going to be Dijon Lee, our 6'3" freshman corner who apparently will throw his body into anything. This is going to be a Zay Mincy game. This is going to be a Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. game where the hitters on the back end are going to be going to have an opportunity to be hitters. The biggest question to me is, with the run gap fits, will everybody be in the right run gaps, and can you defeat the blockers on the perimeter? If you can do that, I think it's going to make Vanderbilt's offense pretty challenging. But you still have those 5 or 6 explosives that Georgia was able to hit on, and if Vanderbilt's not going to need any more than 4, 5, 6 explosives to really be in this game. Joey, I want to keep going with this and ask you about the South Carolina game, because as I'm watching the South Carolina game, I'm seeing more South Carolina implosion than Vanderbilt actually just winning the game, actually going out there taking the game. Now, obviously, you got to take advantage of the situations, and Vanderbilt did do that, but multiple turnovers, multiple penalties, bad incompletions, and of course your starting quarterback gets hurt. What will be the competition like as far as what Vanderbilt has seen this season at South Carolina, at Virginia Tech? They've already fired their coach. 3 cupcakes. Now you're coming to Tuscaloosa. They obviously remember everything that they saw last year against Alabama and Texas and LSU. You played high-level competition over the last year and a half, but you haven't quite played the highest level of competition this season. Do you think that there's any chance that Vanderbilt gets shell-shocked by, we went 3 and out, Alabama went right down the field, and now we've got to respond. What do you think the competitive character of Vanderbilt is if they realize, okay, we are outmatched here in Tuscaloosa?
First of all, Joe, I think I don't got to tell you guys this. This is far and away the best team Vanderbilt has played to this point. Even if Lenore Sellers played that whole game, I think Alabama's far and away the best team that Vanderbilt has played to this point. Does that mean I discount it from finding a way to win? No, I have predicted Alabama wins previously, but uh, I don't know that I would ever count this Vanderbilt team out from going and beating somebody. They've shown me enough to this point to where I don't want to bet against them, guys. I looked like an idiot last year. I predicted they go 3-9. And I had people walking up to me in the facility at the end of the year, like 3-9, really? And I'm like, all right, well, let's maybe table some of these takes in the preseason then every year. But yeah, I think they're a good enough team to do it. If, like Diego Pavia said, if they're on their game, if they play the right way. Again, though, Alabama is the type of team that makes you not play at your best, and I think so often this is a good Tim Corbinism for you guys. Like, there's always the coach that goes in the game and says, or goes in the press conference and says, we haven't played our best game yet. I mean, you look at that and say, I mean, Alabama is a team that makes you not play your best game. You're never going to play your best game against Alabama. I would say 99 out of 100 times you won't. Vanderbilt did last year, which kind of makes the point counterintuitive here. But uh, again, like Alabama's significantly better than South Carolina, significantly better than Virginia Tech, and that doesn't mean those wins aren't impressive. They certainly are impressive in the numbers. At least the South Carolina win is impressive. I thought the Virginia Tech win was impressive in its own way. Vanderbilt kind of won that the big bad SEC way, and you haven't seen Vanderbilt win that way a lot of times where they're just running the team off the field and dominating on the line of scrimmage and kind of taking the will out of a team. I think that was a big deal in itself. But guys, this is a whole nother animal. And I want to hit on the competitive character piece. I don't think this Vanderbilt team really backs down from anybody, and I don't know if they would be phased if they went down early. I think if it gets to 20, then there's going to be some problems. But also, I don't know that it gets there. I think this Vanderbilt team is more capable of hanging with a team like this just because of its mindset than other Vanderbilt teams have been. They expect to go in there and compete. A lot of them expect to go in there and win, and I think that's half the battle there. And I also think they got a strong chin and a short memory, as Sanford basketball coach Lenny Acuff would say.
I want to let's see. We'll move to
Feel free if you want to go there next.
Sure. Yeah. We'll move to the defensive side of the ball, and I want to just ask you about matching up against Ty Simpson. I think we've talked about it on this show. I was incorrect about Ty Simpson in the offseason. I've already gotten it off my chest on this show. I have admitted my wrongdoing. So Ty, hopefully you can forgive me. But Ty Simpson is playing like the best quarterback in the SEC right now. He's playing like maybe the best quarterback in the country right now. How much do you think he's going to, just be able to have a similar success against Vanderbilt's defense that he had against Georgia? Because, seemingly in that Georgia game, especially in the first half, it was like he was playing the game in slow motion. It was amazing. Do you think he's able to have that same level of just being able to stay calm, especially, being at home and everything against his Vanderbilt defense?
I want you to build off that with a pass rush, the Vanderbilt pass rush, getting after this offensive line. Continue. Go ahead, Joey.
Sounds good. Yeah. I don't know that there's anything Vanderbilt can use to throw Ty Simpson off that Georgia wasn't able to use. I think they'll probably throw some stunts at him and try to do things along those lines. But, man, Ty Simpson has just been surgical throughout the year. You guys know that. No interceptions. And he's got the receivers to really be able to break this game open, too. And Vanderbilt's corners, I think, are the biggest key in this game. That's the group that's going to be tested the most throughout the course of the day. Martell Hite's got to bring it. Colby Taylor's got to bring it. I mean, Alabama's got 3 NFL receivers at least in that room. And, man, that's just – it's almost unfathomable to think that Vanderbilt can shut that down. Maybe they can slow it down a little bit, but those guys are going to have to bring it. I think that's really the big key. But Ty Simpson, I think, is going to be surgical. And if Vanderbilt almost just has to pray that he makes a mistake. Miles Capers had the strip sack against Jalen Milroe last year. And obviously that's a guy who's had a great start to the year. Corday Sidner, I think, can really bring it too. Maybe we haven't seen him break out the way that maybe he could down the stretch here. But, guys, I think Alabama is more than capable of putting up a ton of points on Vanderbilt. It's just, can Vanderbilt control the clock a little bit? I think if Vanderbilt's going to win, this is kind of off topic a little bit, I think it's going to have to be somewhat similar to last year where they're winning the time of possession battle and they're running the ball for a good chunk every time they do it. I mean, I think that's the bigger deal than slowing down Alabama's offense. And I don't think Vanderbilt wants to win this game in a shootout because I think Vanderbilt will probably lose the shootout, honestly.
Yeah, see, that's where I was as I'm trying to predict this game. I'm watching South Carolina. Yes, they struggled with critical errors, but they moved the football on Vanderbilt. And at least on the first handful of drives for Virginia Tech, they moved the football a little bit. And so I'm seeing a gettable secondary, and I'm seeing, okay, they're going to have a hard time. Vanderbilt's going to have a hard time really getting to Ty Simpson. And so because of that, I'm wondering, offensively for Vanderbilt, will they be able to keep up? Now, obviously, we've talked all about the offense, and I do think that you're right with this ball control situation. I wonder what ways Vanderbilt gets after this Alabama offense and forces stops. If it's not, we trick Jalen Milroe on third down and we have a pick six and it's an explosive play, a big swing type play, or we're hanging on and boom, we get a strip sack as Jalen Milroe is trying to take the lead. Obviously, different offenses, and you heard Clark Lee yesterday talk about the differences in Alabama's offense from last year to this year. But just if you were the Vanderbilt defensive coordinator, if you were Steve Gregory, what would you be doing? How would you implement this unit to disrupt the Alabama offense?
Joe, I don't get paid enough for that question. That's
I'll send you a check.
Yeah, well, I would appreciate that. So I guess the simple thing is I think they're more dynamic as a defense than they were last year. I think that's certainly something they've got going for them. Brandon Fontenette's going to be an NFL player. I think Bartel Height's got the potential to do it. You look at Langston Patterson and Brian Longwell, two guys who have been in the scheme another year. I just see them flying around a little bit more than I have in the past because of the scheme. And I think honestly, it's just got to go back to the basics. And Steve Gregory's got to allow them to play with conviction a little bit here. Got to allow them to do things that they're comfortable with and play that way. And I really think that's about it. And just let your dynamic players be dynamic. That's probably the biggest thing to me. And I think that Alabama's going to get what Alabama's going to get. Vanderbilt, to be successful on defense, can't stray away from its identity. And it's kind of a coach speak answer a little bit, Joe. I'm sure you got a lot going on over there, but I mean, that's really it for me. I think it's almost got to be more basic than anything. And obviously they're going to account for some Alabama stuff, but Langston Patterson said on Tuesday that you can't account for Ryan Williams running a post in practice. That's not something you can really prepare for with the scout team. So I would expect Vanderbilt to kind of just try to be itself and figure out everything else from there.
He's Joey Dwyer. You read him on Vanderbilt Commodores on SI. You follow him on the Twitter machine at Joey_Dwy, DWY. Joey, give us your final thoughts on this game. And I don't want to pin you into a prediction, but if you want to make one, here's your chance.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I'm 3-2 with predictions this year. I thought they'd win the 3 cupcakes, and then I went on.
I hate predictions, so go do whatever you like to do.
You know what? I actually went on Tech's sideline and said Vanderbilt was going to win, so I'm 4-1. I thought they were going to lose to South Carolina by like 10 points, but they go and beat South Carolina by 20. That's a big deal for them, obviously. I was going to say Bama wins by around 7. It's probably close enough to make me stay there all night doing work rather than wrapping it up by the end of the game. But Joe, it'll be an interesting one. I think it's one of the bigger games for Vanderbilt in recent history, and I'm certainly not counting it out from doing anything. But to beat Alabama twice would be truly unprecedented, and I don't know that I'm ready to go there yet.
He's Joey Dwyer. He's going to be down here in Tuscaloosa. Follow all his coverage on Vanderbilt Commodores on SI and at Joey_Dwy on the Twitter machine. Joey, we look forward to seeing you here, man.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Thanks for your time, Joey.
Thanks, man. See you guys later.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.